The ground, the one constant in this vast, moving, multi-faced world. The single thing you know will stay stable. Except no. One of the most fascinating things about planet Earth is that, in fact, everything on it is constantly being destroyed, created or changed. In but a few short million years, the entire face of the world will probably be different. This is due to two factors: tectonic movement and what we will be discussing today, geomorphic processes. But before we get deep into all of that, first we need to establish some basic stuff, specifically rocks. Now, hopefully you know what rocks are already. If not, you may have been living under a rock. There are three specific types of rock I need to quickly explain: igneous, metamorphic and sedimentary. Igneous, metamorphic and sedimentary rocks. Now, basically what you need to know about these is that igneous and metamorphic rocks are more resistant and sedimentary rocks are less resistant. Simply put, more resistant means rock is stronger to anything to break it or erode it. Less resistant means the rock is weak to anything trying to break or erode it. It is less strong. For those of you a little more interested in rocks, igneous rocks are volcanic rocks essentially made from molten material brought up to the Earth's surface and then cooled into rock. Metamorphic rocks have been folded and distorted by heat and pressure as tectonic plates move. And sedimentary rocks are formed from broken up fragments of rock worn down by weathering, deposited in layers, often under the sea. Life is hard being a rock. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the geomorphic processes. There are 6 main types of this process: erosion, transportation, weathering, climate, deposition and mass movement. Now you've probably all heard of erosion. Its definitive definition is that it is the process of eroding by wind, water or other natural agents. The first form of this is hydraulic action, in which waves crash against rock and compress the air in the cracks. This puts pressure on the rock. Repeated compression widens the rock and makes bits of rock break off. In rivers, the force of water breaks rock particles away from the river channel. The second is abrasion, in which eroded particles in water scrape and rub against rock and sea, bed, cliff or river channel, removing small pieces and wearing them away. Most erosion in rivers happens via abrasion. Following abrasion is attrition. Attrition is where eroded particles in the water smash into each other and break into smaller fragments. Their edges also rounded off as they rub together. The further materials travel, the more eroded it gets. And finally, solution, which is where dissolved carbon dioxide makes river and seawater slightly acidic. The acid remains chemically with some rocks, e.g. chalk and limestone, dissolving them. There are three specific. Right. But there are three specific types of rock I need to quickly run by: igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary rocks. Now, basically, what you need to know about these is that igneous and metamorphic rocks are the most resistant, and sedimentary rocks are the least resistant. Simply put, more resistant mean the rocks are stronger to anything trying to break or erode it. Less resistant means the rock is weaker to anything trying to break or erode it. It is less strong or less resistant. For those of you a little more interested in rocks, igneous rocks are volcanic rocks, essentially made from molten material brought up to the Earth's surface, then cooled into rock. Metamorphic rocks have been folded and distorted by heat and pressure as tectonic plates move. And sedimentary rocks are formed from broken up fragments of rock worn down by weathering. Deposited in layers, often under the sea, life is hard being a rock. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into the nitty-gritty of geomorphic processes. Now there are 6 main types of processes: erosion, transportation, weathering, climate. Now there are 6 main types of. You spelled types wrong.
Sorry.
Now there are 6 main types of this process: erosion, transportation, weathering, climate, deposition, and mass movement. And within each of these is a few different variations upon. Let's begin with erosion. Now you've probably all heard of erosion. Its definitive definition. Oh, that's weird. Now you've probably all heard of
You're a failure.
You say probably. Now you've probably all heard of erosion. Its definitive definition is that it is a process of eroding by wind, water, or other natural agents. The first form of this is hydronic action, in which waves crash against rock and compress the air into cracks. This puts pressure on the rock. Repeated compression widens the cracks and... Oh Christ, where am I?
Can I just say this is so boring to film? What have you done? Awesome. Well, I tell you what though, we've got to do quite a few takes of these anyway, just to make sure we get it.
Yeah.
So should we just do another one? I think
Okay.
That one was definitely really good.
6 minutes of recording, great.